maybe feature one mushroom or two. And we originally had slated 12. There are 11 in NeuroIM. And the reason for that is because the 12th variety, which we were really interested in, it didn't come in a form that we felt like was reliable. We really want consistency with them. And so we settled on 11. And I have to say, from the very start, Tammy was right. It was at Snowbird, which was the fall of 2019. So here we are. Can you believe it? We're actually 4 years since NeuroIM. Just over 3 years. Fall of 2022, and then we got a few months. But NeuroIM went well beyond what we even had imagined it would do. We knew a lot of the properties of these mushrooms, and what we really took are 11 of the very best and the most studied that we felt also would work well together. And I will say people see so many different things, but in general, the focus is kind of what Tammy shared. They're brain pills. They also happen to be amazing immune help, but they are all about the brain. And the reason is so many of the different mushrooms work in different ways to improve the functioning of our whole cognitive area of health. And since that's connected to everything else, it makes a pretty big impact on everything. In preparation for tonight, I was asked to just select one of those mushrooms. So I'm only going to tell you about one. There are 11, and they're super interesting. If you get a chance, buy the book, 10, sorry, did I say 11? It's actually 10 that are in there, and we were going to have 11. Sorry, I think I said 12 and 11. It's 10 and 11. There's a book called 10 Medicinal Mushrooms that Dr. Allison Caldwell Andrews wrote. It's an enjoyable read. It really is actually science read that reads like an entertaining article. So it's not heavy, I promise you, and it's worth it because when you get done reading it, it features each of the 10 mushrooms that are in there. And I'm just going to tell you about the first one tonight. You kind of see why people that have had damage, like Tammy mentioned the concussions, accidents, where there's been impact, and some things just haven't come back to normal, even sometimes for years. You kind of can see why people who will use NeuroIM with enough time, letting their body heal, can start to see changes. Because these aren't just the mushrooms that you slice up raw and you stick on pizza. They're actually all medicinal, and most of them could be adaptogens. We know that several of them are adaptogens, and we heard a little bit about what an adaptogen is earlier. It's probable that the majority of these are. It's absolutely confirmed that several, I think at least 4 of them would be confirmed adaptogenic. And why that makes a difference is because it doesn't matter exactly the nature of what I'm struggling with that has to do with mental clarity, brain health, memory, emotions, mood, anything that kind of runs through that area. An adaptogen has nutrients put a certain way that boost either side of weakness. If we think of balance as centered, and almost all health conditions can be looked at this way, where they become kind of overactive out of balance, hyperactive, or active to an extreme versus worn down, chronically undernourished, under-energized, and just not happening or barely happening. You can kind of look at most health things that way. It's actually fascinating to look at health more on a scale of balance than simply looking at terms and numbers, even though I know it's all instructive. With the brain, I think it's the same way. And mushrooms, especially adaptogens, they provide both sides. So that what happens is sometimes we'll say, oh, they adapt to our body's needs, but what it really is they have everything our body needs, regardless of its particular situation. It finds the nutrient to plug the holes that are there or to bolster the weakness that's there. That's at least the way that I like to explain it or view it. So let me tell you about the first one in NeuroIM tonight, and I'll just talk about that one. It's called lion's mane, and there are a lot of lion's mane products out there, and a lot of times they'll be combined with just one or two other things. I think the reason for this is lion's mane, I think most surely is an adaptogen. It's a really pretty mushroom that has these narrow flowing, like the mane of a lion. And so you look at the whole thing and you can see why it's called lion's mane. But I think it's one of the best reparative and restorative mushrooms that are out there. It is shown in studies to bolster our mood. Corinne talked a little bit about anxiety, even depression. People that just start eating lion's mane as part of their diet notice a difference there. So it surely is a mood normalizer, like all true adaptogens are, but also it is shown in studies, and this is what's so interesting about the book that Dr. Allison wrote. She just gives you little bullet point summaries of a variety of studies with lion's mane. There are several that show autoimmune situations, intestinal, like Crohn's, I think she mentioned that, which is an intestinal autoimmune, and protective of various organs like pancreas or liver. Lion's mane actually helps pull down the inflammation in general and break up, form, and harden things. And we think about the body needs to maintain flexibility and balance. When it becomes rigid, things happen. And we heard a little bit from Tammy about, for it's also that's exactly what he's with them. Broken down. I think another one they talked about was Parkinson. So there were a number of involved with your nerves and nervous system and brain. People actually felt a difference. The third study was moderate impairment. People saw marked improvement with just eating lion's mane. So it's shown to help there. Why? I think the why for that, well, one of the studies showed that your nerves have these little protective coating around them, the myelin sheath, that actually is with lion's mane. Helps when the body can repair. I don't think, again, my own personal opinion, I don't think the body is very successfully if we're in a state of managed nutrition. So and they're usually chock full of nutrients. When the body gets that, it's amazing what the body can do. The product doesn't cure anything, but they're shown to help with that. Even the coating around the nerves. Also, lion's mane does all those things. It's a repair. It reestablishes things to what extent is different with every person. So I'm fascinated. It might be pretty rapid. I've heard of a few that are people that were in accidents and longer term things, like Tammy's story. I think it happens more often than not with nutrition, where the improvements are gradual, even to the point where sometimes we might go, yeah, I'm not sure I'm noticing much, until we take that nutrition out. And suddenly we realize, oh, it was doing a lot. I just got used to feeling this way, and that was my new normal, and I didn't recognize it compared to what really was my normal for you. Health preventative, something that can happen at every age, from children to really advanced ages. Yeah, I definitely feel like you can't lose adding working NeuroIM.
Greg, I love all the things that you shared. The very first thing that you touched on was the consistency. And I actually was like, oh my word, this whole time I thought there was mushrooms. And then you said 11. I thought, I've read that book, 10 mushrooms, So I love that you said you were looking at that 11th one, but it didn't have that consistency.
Right.
I appreciate that so much about the Soul products is because I know what I'm going to get. And so many times out there, you don't know what you're going to get, but I know that with Soul. So I love that you talked about that. And Lion's Mane is one of my favorite ones as well. I love how you said it, we're restored and repaired, because that's what we are doing. We're living life every day. And what do we need to do? We need to restore and replenish and repair our body. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, let's see. All right, Ashley, go on to the next one for us. Okay, so we're going to ask a question too. We call this Greg's perspective. It's just another question that we love to dig deep with Greg. Why did you choose the word soul as the company name?
Well, that's a good question, because the reason we founded the company was we saw a need to prepare every formula with nutrition for both physical and mental, or physical and emotional in parallel health objectives. Believing, as we did at the start, that it would give people a better result and also better long-term. And so how did Soul was an effort on our part to try to describe that. So yeah, it's the spelling's unique. That was on purpose because we want to be able to own the name, but it does sound like SOUL. It's a homonym, and that's intentional, because as we believing as